Thank you, Mr. Boyden. I am your third daughter and your second Amy, so.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really honored to be up here. I'm honored to be asked to speak again by this class. And it's funny, I was just telling the other teachers, it's like the end of the year is such like a mixture of emotion for me, because a very large part of me is like, yes, it's over, thank God. Another part of me is like, oh, they're leaving, and they're not coming back, and this is it. And you know, for a lot of these students, I've had them for 3 years actually, from sophomore to senior, and I probably see them more than some of my friends, because they're required to. So it's hard for me on an emotional level to watch them go. But you know, you're grown up, and that's what you're supposed to do. So I've labeled my speech today the question of identity. Dear class of 2018, you have reached the end of a significant phase of your life journey today. At the end of this ceremony, you will walk from this building, no longer grown-up children in school, but as young adults, facing both the harsh realities and the overwhelming beauties of life. Now, I say this not to diminish everything that you have experienced before now, but it is instead to recognize that a very large season of your life is passing, and a fresh new one full of possibilities is beginning. Perhaps the 8 of you, like most high school graduates, are currently experiencing more of that feeling of exhausted relief, like, thank God it's over and I passed, hopefully, than sensations of nostalgia, you know, of the past, or awe and wonder of what is to come. As the great and renowned writer Dr. Seuss once stated, sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. Speaking as one who graduated from PFA 12 years ago, somehow ended up back here as a teacher twice, ran a business, began and finished college, got married, and produced a child who is somehow now 1 year old. I deeply identify with this truth. When I look back on my high school memories, I feel a great sense of fondness, not because those years were drama-free, stress-free, or in any way perfect, but because there is an ease, there is an innocence to that stage of learning and discovery in life that is unlike any other. It is a time of learning how to socially interact aptly and appropriately, one hopes. It is a time of gathering important and useful academic information for the future, except algebra if we're being It is a time of stepping out into the realm of personal responsibility and experiencing the consequences, good or bad, of your choices. And more than anything, it is a time of trial and error on the road to identity. As my psych students learned this year, all mankind goes through fairly similar and basic developmental stages, regardless of time period or culture. So according to the psychologist Erik Erikson, the stage between the ages of 13 and 21 experiences something called the conflict of identity versus role confusion. It is during this time that one begins a reflective, interpersonal exploration regarding one's sense of self, your personal values and beliefs, as well as working on establishing your future goals. It is the time of an intense desire to become increasingly independent, while also realizing how many question marks about yourself and your future hang vaguely in the balance. This search for self and identity often leads people to explore a vast array of identities, social opportunities, and lifestyles to try them on for size, as it were. This exploration can often be in direct opposition to the instructions or values given to them in childhood, and less often it is in alignment with them. But regardless of what is or what is not statistically common, the question of who you are and the choices you will make to find your identity is now being directly placed in front of you. You cannot, nor should you, run away from it. But you should also know and fully accept that every choice that you make now, even the small little ones, will forever be a part of and contribute to your life story. So 2018 PFA graduates, I sincerely ask you, who are you? Who are you going to be? And how and from where will you form your identity? First, we have to know what we're talking about when we consider identity. The dictionary simply defines it as the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. So that's true. but not exactly helpful, nor full in its definition. By following that logic, your identity is whatever it is at a given time, not a set or static state of being. Yet many of us older folks here today know that from hindsight, even though we may have adopted certain ways of behaving or expressing emotions or interacting with others over the years, our search for understanding of self and identity has pretty much always been found in one sometimes elusive place. In a way, we come into this world with a set identity, and as we grow, we embark on the journey to grasp that personal, family, and communal identity. But allow me to make all this philosophical postulating a little more practical. I want to be transparent with you, my former students, and now friends. The everyday experiences, thoughts, feelings, and choices you have now probably don't feel like they carry the weight of being connected to an understanding of your identity. But the reality is that what you feel, the deepest desires of your innermost being, the search for things to just make you feel happy, the quest for a path and a reason for being on this planet are ultimately what drive you to make the decisions that you do. And we at PFA have obviously taught you academically and culturally from a particular set of biases. All schools will do that in their own way. We set out to teach our students an accurate approach to history, a rational and logical approach to science, and critical thinking skills with which to knowledgeably and confidently approach literature, psychology, and philosophy. Honestly, we don't teach all this stuff because it's school and you're just supposed to, teach stuff. We instruct you in these specific ways, morally and philosophically based in Judeo-Christian biblical values, because we know from experience that there are ultimately two paths that we are given in the decisions that we make. A path that leads to life and a path that leads to destruction. Having been at PFA both as a student of 10 years and now a teacher of 6 years, I have watched many young people graduate from here and have seen their life choices as they've embarked on their identity quest in a world much unlike the PFA bubble. I experienced this myself, having come from this relatively conservative background and having been thrust into a completely non-conservative atmosphere. Either through work or college, the vast majority of you will come head-to-head with social settings and pressures that make it clear that everything that you have been taught to believe is valuable is now not only worthless, but deplorable. You have been told lies your entire young life, they will say. It is now, only now, that you're in college and in the real world that you are being properly educated about morality, philosophy, social justice, and politics. It's kind of a rude encounter, to be honest. Even when you know it's coming, you're like prepping yourself for it. It's still an entirely different experience face-to-face, and when it happens, you really will need to evaluate all that you have learned in life prior and compare it to what you are learning now. You need to test it, weigh it, and see how it stands up to intense scrutiny. And boy, is that process uncomfortable. But the reality is that that process is always happening, whether it be on the conscious or subconscious level, and honestly, it's not really a bad thing. We can never stand strong for our beliefs if we haven't thoroughly tested them against the opposite point of view. The only way to avoid this experience is to go from one Christian bubble to another. And I'm not sure if that's always the most beneficial way in the long run. I have an AA from a highly liberal non-Christian college and my BS from a Christian university. I have experienced both atmospheres and have understanding for the pros and cons of each situation. So I will not stand here today and say with absolute certainty that going one way or the other is the perfect, most Jesus way to go. I deeply value my Christian college education, deeply. It was such a relief and a pleasure to be studying a subject I was passionate about with individuals who shared, if nothing else, at least my basic set of morals. Compared to my liberal college experience, wading through overwhelming assignments at a Christian university felt comparatively easy. I learned a great deal about psychology in my bachelor's program at Liberty. But I learned more about myself and my standards, my boundaries, and my faith at a college that shared none of those. You see, when faced with people who say everything you believe is wrong, you either agree with them or you seek to find out why they are mistaken. There is no other option. I have watched PFA graduates choose both diverse paths, and seen the results of their decisions, many of them ongoing. In the end, they all received the same basic education, but each one of them individually chose who they wanted to be by choosing what they were willing to believe. They chose to form their identities based around information that appealed to their search for happiness and their search for worth and meaning. And then my paper gets stuck. Here we go. My friends, I do not say all this in an attempt to inspire any sort of fear or anxiety, but courage. You are not at the mercy of fate. You are not enslaved to the wills of others' voices. You, and you alone, make the choices that you do. And you will feel the results, positive or negative. This is not to diminish the power of social influence, because it is obviously there. And it is very often really challenging. But ultimately, you always have the power to say yes or no to those trying to form your identity for you. Your professors can't do it for you, your classmates can't do it for you, and even your beloved parents cannot do it for you. While external government via parents and school policy have helped to guide you to where you are today, it is now only internal government and the solidity of your beliefs that will take you onward. So I ask again, how and from where will you form your identity? As I reflect on where life has taken me so far as a student, a wife, and now a mother, I find that every label I can put on myself to help form my identity is ultimately empty and useless, unless and only when I first acknowledge a few pivotal points. First, all human life, from conception, is specially created and inestimably precious. I was specifically chosen by God to be me in this life on earth. This is my first point of wonder, and upon which all true identity is based. Secondly, there is a God who created all life, and his decision to assume human form is both historically proven, logically sound, and emotionally incomprehensible on a human level. Yet his ransoming of me from my evilness with his very life and resurrection means that my life now has purpose and meaning. Third, my search for happiness apart from relationship with Jesus and the precepts of God's law will never, ever, ever be fruitful. No amount of sexual pleasure or suspension of reality via drugs and alcohol, or any sense of importance gained through personal accomplishments will really fulfill my innermost heart, and it will never fulfill yours either. Next, my inherent dependence on an all-powerful and all-knowing God does not make me in any way weaker, nor does it diminish the value and pleasure of my life experiences. And finally, my identity was created in me before my birth and is found solely in the understanding of the personhood and heart of God. The more we know God, the more we truly understand ourselves and who we are made to be. The farther we stray, the more lost we feel, and the more we search for meaning in other deceptively appealing places. And what I speak of, it's not the religion of your parents or your school, it's just the truth of life itself and the reality which each individual must face on his or her road to identity. Some never really come to this realization and are stuck, feeling lost and discontent. As I conclude, if it doesn't make you graduates uncomfortable, but hopefully it does, I'd like to speak to what I see in each of you individually. Dun, dun, dun. Brandon Anetsky, your life path has given you such valuable perspective. I'm going to cry. I'm a mom now, so I'm like highly sentimental about all this stuff. You're all my babies. Okay. That's not helping. You hold an immensity of kindness and wisdom that is so needed for young men of your time. I hope you will always value the freedom Christ has given you as dearly as you do now. Isabella, you have a beautifully artistic and sensitive spirit that always seeks connection with others. And your ability to touch others with your loving and bubbly sense of humor is a gift to be treasured and protected, and I hope you will always share of your gifts freely to those who truly deserve it. Okay. Amy. Amy, my hard-shelled chocolate with a soft nougaty center. As you continue to learn to temper your passion with wisdom and kindness, your influence upon others will be powerful and profound. I hope you will grow to appreciate that your sensitivity is not your weakness, but your greatest strength. Emma, how you have been blessed with strong sensibilities and a work ethic to match. Despite many personal challenges you have encountered over the academic years, you have applied yourself, and you have shown you are capable to overcome. I pray that your strong desire for truth and accuracy is always accompanied with a stronger heart for grace. Alicia, I feel like it took us a while to understand each other.
So true.
Yeah. But I have really, really treasured to getting to know you and your personality and your heart for people. You desire to do what is right and to do your best and to bless others in the process. And I hope your effort to do things excellently is always bound by mercy for yourself. Aiden, I haven't known you long, but I have been consistently impressed by your grounded and calm way of handling things. You have managed to find your calling early as a chef and possess both the character and the fortitude to become successful. And I pray that as you grow in your leadership skills, you would also find complete freedom in knowing that God is always in control of your path. Carly, now I've known you for quite a while. And I have the advantage of having watched you grow in beauty, humor, tenacity, and general overall volume. It's true. Your exuberance for life and people is nothing short of infectious and cute. I admire your ability to laugh, even when things press in at you at all sides. I pray that you have many open doors and great favor and an increased ability to capitalize initial words at the beginning of sentences as you begin the long road on your medical career. I have complete faith you can do whatever you set your mind to, and also bless people's lives profoundly in the process. Brandon White, I've never had you in my classes.
Ouch.
But I've seen you around school for many years, and I've heard quite a few stories from my fellow teachers, and they're all positive. What I see in you is a great attitude. I've rarely seen you without a smile and an encouraging word or laugh for your classmates and your teachers. And that is more of a blessing than I think you know. I hope you always retain and grow in that aspect of your gifting and spreading the joy and love of Christ to all you encounter. Sometimes a smile is all that's needed to change someone's day drastically. As I conclude class of 2018, I want you to know your identities are all unique and special, and yet they are all also similarly grounded and connected in the unshakable foundation of Christ. I also want you to know that my door and phone are always open to you at any time. So as you leave this building today, graduates, who will you become? The choice is yours. Thank you.